What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG on the YouTube.com down there. We like magic. And today, good day. It's the last day of Kaladesh spoilers. The entire set is out there for all to look at and admire and be like, ooh. So with that in mind, they spoiled like 92 cards or something this morning. So we're not going to go through all of those. I'm going to give you my top 20 cards from today instead. That being said, though, I'm going to leave a link to Mythic Spoiler in the description of the video just in case you don't know how to get to a spoiler site. I know a lot of people that are like, where are you getting these spoilers from? So I'll leave a link in the description. You can check out Mythic Spoiler and see all the stuff that I haven't talked about today. So let's go ahead and hit the list, though. Let's go ahead and start the list with number 20 because that makes the most sense. Number 20 is Pima Outrider. This is a 4-mana, 3/3 Elf Artificer with Trample and Fabricate 1. The only reason I bring this up is because it looks very, very good and limited to me, draft and sealed. Obviously, this is a common. Like, this is a common, you guys. That's really, really good. And it can be a 4-mana 4/4, or it can be a 4-mana 3/3 that gives you a token and facilitates a bunch of different sort of servo and artifact synergies in this limited right now. So this card looks like a really, really solid pickup, is all I'm saying. Number 19 is a card that's probably not on a lot of people's lists, and I've actually got a few cards like that today. But remember, this isn't like the top 20 from the set or anything. It's just the top 20 from the last day of spoilers. But anyway, number 19 is Fretwork Colony, at least for me. I'm very interested in this. It's a 2-mana 1/1 insect that can't block, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you put a +1/+1 counter on the colony, and you lose 1 life. Well, if you play this on turn 2, then it can get to, a 5/5 pretty quickly, actually. By turn 6, it's a 5/5. That's not terrible, actually, and yeah, it can't block, and yeah, you lost some life. But I think possibly that this could get some very marginal play. It's no Tarmogoyf, it's no Sylvan Advocate, but those are the two creatures that it is most like in some ways. You just leave it out on the board, and within, by turn 5, turn 6, it become pretty darn big. But you do pay some life, and it can't block. So it's just nowhere near as good as some of these other creatures that get bigger as the game goes on, but it is still, I think, worth mentioning. Very interesting card. My number 18 from today is Aire Meltdown. It looks unassuming at first. It's just a 2-mana aura with flash, and you enchant a creature or vehicle. And when it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. Enchanted permanent gets -4, -0. Now, the cool thing about this is that it has flash, and it's kind of like removal. I mean, for only 2 mana that early in the game, -4 is going to shut down anything. And in a lot of control decks, you don't care, if they still have their creature out, as long as that creature can't attack you. That's the number one thing that we're worried about. We just don't want to take damage from creatures, and this shuts down an awful lot of stuff. And even if something's like a 5-power guy, it reduces it to 1 power. And this has flash, and it just randomly throws you 2 energy when it comes into play. So that actually doesn't look that bad. I really, really like that it has flash. But let's move on. Number 17, Trusty Companion is my number 17. Just because of the stats, 2-mana 3/2. We see 2-mana 3/1 sometimes, and those are okay and limited. But this is a 2-mana 3/2 that's pretty splashable, easy to cast, and has another ability, Vigilance. I mean, I don't think it's really going a whole lot of places, but Trusty Companion at least looks good stats-wise. My number 16 is Aether Theorist. This is just 2 mana for a 1/3 Vidalcan Rogue with when Aether Theorist enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters. And you can tap it and pay 1 energy to scry 1. Now this just looks really, really, really good and limited. Just extremely solid. 2 mana 1/3s are already decent blockers. This throws you 3 energy when it enters the battlefield on turn 2. That's pretty good. And paying an energy and tapping it to scry 1 is actually not as bad as it looks at all. Scrying is good. So I really think this card looks fantastically solid for limited. I don't think it'll make it out of that format, but it looks somewhat pushed. I love the 3 energy when it enters the battlefield. On a good blocker, seems decent to me. But we'll move on. Number 15 is Wild Wanderer. It's a 4-mana 3/2 Elf Druid with when Wild Wanderer enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Well, people really like cards like Civic Wayfinder. That card actually saw standard play a couple of different times because it's been printed a few times. This costs you the extra mana and puts the land on the battlefield tapped, which could be decent in like emerge builds or something that's looking to have creatures with ETB effects or some sort of value that you get out of them other than just the sacrifice. So that looks okay, but 4 mana is awfully prohibitive. Much easier to play this for 3 mana, just put the land in your hand. That's arguably better because 4 mana is an awful lot and you want to be doing more for your 4 mana than just this. But the card does not look terrible. A creature, a body that puts a land into play That's good. That's ramp and a blocker, so I'll take it. It's no Primal Druid. I wouldn't say it's better than Primal Druid, but it is at least comparable. On to the next, though. Number 14 is Dramatic Reversal. This is just 2 mana for an instant. Untap all non-land permanents you control. And this is a bit high up the list. I will admit that. I've got a couple of things that are a bit high up the list, honestly. But picking 20 really decent cards from today was a little harder, honestly, than I thought it would be. We had some decent stuff today. It's just hard to order it all. But Dramatic Reversal, it's so high up the list because it may actually be busted in the exact right strategy. You know, a commander deck that has a lot of rocks, mana rocks, and creatures that tap to do stuff. You know, you just play for 2 mana. You can untap all your stuff and start again. And we may even see, you know, a lame, sort of a weirdo standard deck that wants to do this. Although I really, really doubt it. I just think the card has some applications that I'm interested in. So put it all the way up at number 14. Number 13 is Renegade Tactics. This is just 1 red mana for a sorcery. Target creature can't block this turn, and you draw a card. Simple as that. And this is another thing that's pretty far up this list for what it does. But I actually think it might be better than it looks. You'll almost always have a target for this, even if you're targeting your own creature on your turn, obviously, because it's a sorcery. Sometimes you just want to draw the card, and 1 card for 1 mana is very, very good. I like that we have another thing that does this. We already had Expedite, Slip Through Space in the format, but this could actually be pretty good for a mono red aggro deck or, you know, a red Splash X deck. As long as it can fit, you know, a few copies of this. I'm not sure it'll have the slots for a card like this, but in a mono red aggro deck, this actually isn't god-awful, and, you know, I really wish that we still had Monastery of Swiftspear in this format. The card would be really good if we still had Swiftspear. But we don't. But with that being said, I don't think the card is bad in a mono red aggro shell that can find the spots for it. So let's move on to number 12 so we can talk about something else that could actually maybe see some limited pauper play. This is Ninth Bridge Patrol. It is 2 mana for a 1/1 Dwarf Soldier, and whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Ninth Bridge Patrol. Now this is interesting because it's an awful lot like Unruly Mob, except the creature type is not as good, so it's not a strictly better Unruly Mob at all. The creature type really goes a long way on Mob. We really don't have... I mean, Soldier is sort of a good creature type, but definitely not in the standard. Nobody really cares. But I do like, instead of when the creature dies, which it'll still get +1/+1 until end of turn if a creature dies. But if you blink a creature, if your opponent blinks a creature, you know, if they if you get your creature zoomed back to your hand, if you get your creature bounced, then this will still get +1/+1 until end of turn. And that's at least interesting. People played Unruly Mob, so they may play this in a very niche sort of deck, but we'll have to see about that. These, you know, 20 through 5 are cards that I don't know if they'll see standard play. The others I'm almost, you know, 5 through 1 I'm almost certainly sure about. So let's move on, though, to number 11. This is Built to Smash, which is one of my favorite card names of all time. It's just 1 red mana for an instant. Target attacking creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. If it's an artifact creature, it gains trample until end of turn. Now this isn't quite giant growth because the creature has to be attacking, meaning that it won't always save the creature from something like a Grasp of Darkness or something like that. So that is important to remember, but in a deck that includes this card, you're going to be attacking every turn anyway. So, and I do like the caveat that if it's an artifact creature, it gains trample, but that's not even that important. You know, in a mono red aggro deck or a red X aggro, you know, red blue aggro, like we're seeing some people want right now, this could actually work really, really well. Just 1 mana for a +3/+3, which is nothing to sneeze at. And I might still like Titan Strength. The scry is very important, but your creature will survive more off of this card. So it's basically, I mean, it could be seen as a replacement, and I do like it. Let's move on to number 10, and this is where I'm going to start talking to you face to face like a person. This is Servo Exhibition. It's just 2 mana for a sorcery. Create 2 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature tokens. So we saw a card that calls back to Unruly Mob. It's only natural that we'd see a card that calls back to Raise the Alarm. And again, creature type matters here, but in this case, at least in this standard, this is a better creature type. But this is good. I've always liked Raise the Alarm, so I'm just glad that we have this, that's all. My number 9 is Sequestered Stash. It's a land, and you can tap it for a colorless, that's cool, or you can pay 4 generic and tap it and sacrifice Sequestered Stash to put the top 5 cards of your library into your graveyard. Then you may put an artifact card from your graveyard on top of your library. I'm a little apprehensive about this, although I do think that Commander players will probably really like this card, and it could see some standard play. The only reason I'm apprehensive is that I don't like a couple of things. I don't like The replace your draw effect, I'm not a huge fan, although you can do this at the end of your opponent's turn and just go ahead and draw the thing you put on top. That'll probably happen most of the time. And that's really a nitpick. Everything else about the card is okay, other than the fact that it essentially costs 4 mana, and you have to tap this and sacrifice a very, very steep cost on doing the thing here. But I do think it could see one-of play in multiple decks. It all depends on what we see in this format. But I do think that it's a solid card, and if nothing else, I think Commander players probably like it. My number 8 is way up the list. This is Select for Inspection. It's just a blue, and it's an instant. You return target tapped creature to its owner's hand and scry 1. I really think this is one of the better unsummons, like literally ever. Yes, the creature has to be tapped. That's not necessarily great, although the scry is incredibly important, and the instant speed is the most important thing on the card. You know, we have like Clutch of Currents in the format right now, but it's a sorcery. This is just 1 mana to either pull a creature back to your hand to save it, or put a creature back in their hand that's trying to attack you, or that maybe did attack you last turn. And again, the scry is just insanely important. There'll be a couple times I mentioned that in this video, if I'm not mistaken, how good scry is, especially this early in the game. If you're playing this as a tempo card and you play it on turn 2, turn 3, returning a guy that's attacking you to their hand, and then you get to scry, that can make a huge difference. You know, just 1 draw can win the game or lose the game. So this actually doesn't look terrible, and might see some play in the blue-red spells decks and stuff. I don't think so, but the card may be better than a lot of people are evaluating it, simply because of the scry and the very, very, very cheap mana cost and the instant speed. A lot of good things about the card is all I'm saying, but like I said before, I'm not sure that we'll see like things that'll almost certainly see standard play until like number 5 here. My number 7 on the day is Confiscation Coup, one of the only rares that we saw all day. It's 5 mana for a sorcery. Choose target artifact or creature. You get 4 energy counters. Then you may pay an amount of energy equal to that permanent's converted mana cost. If you do, you gain control of it. So this may be one of the better control magics we've seen in a while, and they'll never reprint the actual straight-up control magic. It's too good. Same with Treachery. This is no Treachery, but it's still not bad for the modern era of Magic, you know? First of all, one very important thing about this is that it's not an aura, you know? It's not a you control enchanted creature. This is a sorcery, so once you steal the creature, it is yours forever, and they can't get it back by making an aura fall off or anything. That's really good. When you play it, it gives you 4 energy counters, which is interesting for a couple of reasons. Because 4 energy is actually a lot in this situation. You know, you can get something with 4 converted mana cost all, you know, right off the bat. That's not bad. Or a couple of options open to you. You can pay more energy than this card gives you if you already have energy laying around and get a bigger creature or artifact. Or you can pay less. You can pay 2 or 3 and get a 2 or 3 casting cost thing and keep energy around that this card gave you. So I really like the versatility on this. I like a lot of the blue energy cards, actually. And I love cards that let you steal your opponent's guys. So I am a fan of this, although again, my expectations for standard play are a bit tempered. I could see it happening. I'm actually going to cheat and put 2 cards at number 6 here, which if you've watched my top list videos, then you know I do this occasionally. But I couldn't decide, and they're very similar cards, or at least they go in the same deck. I couldn't decide between Gearshift Ace and Veteran Motorist. Now, Gearshift Ace is a 2 mana, 2/1 dwarf pilot with first strike, and whenever it crews a vehicle, then the vehicle gains first strike until end of turn. That's not bad. And we also got the Motorist today. That's 2 mana, a red and a white, by the way, for a 3/1 dwarf pilot, and when it enters the battlefield, you scry 2. And whenever Veteran Motorist crews a vehicle, that vehicle gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Now, if I absolutely had to pick one of these, it would definitely be Veteran Motorist. That card is sick. Like, Veteran Motorist, really, really good. It's a 2 mana, 3-power guy, which is already good if all you're doing is attacking. But this crews things with a crew of up to 3 really, really easily, and when it does crew them, it gives them a buff. And it just randomly scries 2 when it enters the battlefield. Like, all of these things are great. So I really like that card, although I do also think it's important to point out the gear shift guy, the street racer, basically. Even if you read the flavor text, that guy's a street racer, which is awesome. I think they could both go in the same deck. Although if I absolutely had to choose a 2-drop with a gun to my head, it would be Veteran Motorist. That thing is crazy. I guess I should have said that the cards that reach standard play are probably going to start at like number 6. Because if vehicles is a thing, then Veteran Motorist is in it all day guarantee. So let's move on to number 5. Another card that I'm pretty sure will see standard play if control is a thing, and that's Glimmer of Genius. It's 4 mana for an instant. Scry 2, then draw 2 cards. You get 2 energy counters. There is not a whole lot of really good instant speed card draw in the format, and Control wants it really, really bad, and I think they'd be willing to do this. Draw 2 at instant speed. I think Control is willing to pay 4 mana for that effect and get 2 energy while it's at it. So I'm a big, huge fan of this, and it looks, again, unassuming at first glance, but I think this card is much better than it appears. Here's another rare that was spoiled today. This is Deadlock Trap, and I'm going to put it at number 4. This is just 3 generic mana for an artifact that enters the battlefield tapped. When Deadlock Trap enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy counters, and you can tap the trap and pay an energy to tap target creature or planeswalker, and its activated abilities can't be activated this turn. So it's an artifact that taps planeswalkers, which is really weird sounding. It's very awkward sounding, tapping planeswalkers, but it's mostly just so they can't use their activated abilities. They had to word it that way. I actually don't think this card is phenomenal or anything, but I do think it could possibly give any deck in the format a way to stop planeswalkers, which looks like it's going to be very, very important, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this card see some limited sideboard play. And I don't mean in the limited format. I mean sideboard play that is limited, honestly. I'm not really sure if this card's going to be a thing. It looks very slow. 3 generic mana, comes into play tapped. Those things are bad. But the fact that it gives any deck at all the ability to shut down planeswalkers, at least for a little while, is great. And I could see it seeing sideboard play, definitely. Hi, it's my face. Usually I'd cut to a card right here. But we're on number 3. We're in the top 3 right now, and I want to precede that by saying that these next 3 cards, the last 3, are all in some ways interchangeable. Don't pay too much attention to the way they're ordered on the list, because I think that these 3 cards are just the cards from today that are absolutely the most capable of seeing at least standard play. And it's almost guaranteed unless something goes horribly wrong. And they're all very different cards, so it's hard to order them, you know what I mean? But I've done my best, and I've tried to be objective here. Just remember that I think these are easily the best cards of the day. I think these are the cards that are most likely to see real, actual constructed play. And they're almost interchangeable, honestly. So don't pay too much attention to the way I've ordered them here. Let's move on and tell you what number 3 is. Number 3 is Revolutionary Rebuff, which could easily be number 1, honestly. It depends on what happens in this format. It's just 2 mana for an instant, counter target non-artifact spell, unless its controller pays 2. It ain't Mana Leak, but we will absolutely take what we can get. This is probably instantly the best early game counterspell in the entire format. And it can't counter artifacts, that is true, which actually may have some significance and keep it from seeing play anywhere outside of Standard. Of course, outside of Standard, they have Mana Leak, so they won't play this card anyway. We're only really concerned about Standard play with this card. And I think that it definitely has the legs. Really, really important pickup for Control decks. A lot of us were wondering if Control was going to be a real thing in this Standard. A lot of people, well, Control looks good, it's just got to get some pieces. And I think this is definitely an awesome 4-of pickup. It's not Mana Leak, it's not even Rune Snag, but it will definitely work. My number 2 card of the day is Servant of the Conduit. This is 2 mana for a 2/2 elf druid, and when it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy counters. And you can tap it and pay an energy to add a mana of any color to your mana pool. So this card could have been rare. This card could have definitely been rare. This is very, very pushed for an uncommon, When it, first of all, it's a bear. It's a 2 mana 2/2. They could have made this like a 2 mana 0/2 or 0/3 to where it has 0 significance after it loses its energy counters, or after you lose all your energy counters. But they didn't do that. They made it a creature that can attack and can trade on blocks. So that's really, really good. And the best thing about this, obviously, is it's a 2 mana creature that ramps you and provides any mana you want, at least twice, if not more. That is really, 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 really good. Like, better than you think. And I'm pretty sure you think that it's good. I mean, obviously a 2 mana creature that makes any color mana, and in this case can actually provide offense or, a tradable card on blocks. All of that is super, super awesome. So I'm a huge fan of this, and they could have made it rare, and it could easily be the best card of the day too. Super jacked about this. But if you want to know what I am most jacked about today, this is Harsh Scrutiny, my number 1 card from the last day of spoilers. It's just 1 black mana for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a creature card from it. That player discards that card. Scry 1. So there's been a debate raging all day whether or not this is better or worse than Despise. Despise has a little bit more play on it, and I'd really, really like to have that card back too. Don't get me wrong, card is good. But this, again, I'll say this for the second time in the video, the scry is incredibly important in control in the early game. Turn 1, turn 2. The scry is insanely important at really any point in the game for control. Scrying is always better than people think it is. You know, when the temples came out, the dual lands that came into play tap, and you scry one when they come into play, everyone was like, these are bad. They were so good, you guys. And everyone admitted it within like 2 weeks. Like, oh my god, these are amazing. This card, though, it also lets you scry the 1. You can also play it turn 1. And it will get rid of creatures in their hand, which they're almost certainly going to have in the very early game. So whether or not it's better than Despise, I can't say. Despise has a more, another option on it, and a very important one. But this card, the scry, is going to be really, really good early game. But the most important thing to me, at least, is that we get a replacement for Duress. We really, really needed a 1-mana black piece of discard. We needed that badly. We had Despise, we had Thoughtseize, we had Despise, we had Duress. They all slowly rotated out, and everyone was chewing their fingernails like, are we going to get another 1-mana black discard piece? We got one, you guys, and I actually think this is a very, very relevant one too. So good on you, Wizards, for printing this. I think it's going to really help control an awful lot. Just like a couple of the cards we've seen today. Number 3 also helps control. So, I'm glad that you exist, sir, is all I'm saying. And with that, that's all I've got. Those are my 20 favorite cards from today, but do remember that you can go into the description and look at everything that was spoiled today by simply clicking the link to Mythic Spoiler. Now, it's time to talk about what I've got on the schedule coming up. That's really, really important. Well, we are done with spoilers, finally. I love spoiler season. I love spoiler season, but by the time it's done, I'm always like, it's done. So that happened. That means, though, that it's brew time, and I've already been working on a bunch of decks I've told you about in a couple of videos here. But the schedule is looking like I'm going to take a day off tomorrow, because gotta get some sleep. But Monday morning is when I'm looking to have the first deck tech of the season up, and that is probably, depending on what you tell me here, but I'm really, really angling towards the Fast and the Furious deck, the red-white vehicles deck. I really have been having fun brewing that up. As much as I said I hated cards and Magic, that deck has been pretty awesome. I'm also working on Boros Equipments and Boros big stuff, big casting cost stuff. I'm working on Esper and Blue-White Control. It's something else I'm really excited about putting out. And I'll probably put out either Esper or Blue-White after I put out the red-white vehicles deck. So that's the stuff that I'm working on, at least preliminarily right now. And of course, you'll get the top 10 upcoming deck techs video very soon, so look out for that. So if you enjoyed this content, like it. That's just super important. Hit the thumbs up button. Comment, let me know how you felt about these. What did I miss? Or maybe I've misevaluated a couple of things. And I know that there are a couple cards that are further up on the list than maybe they should be, but I always do that. So in any case, let me know how you felt about these. Share the content, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys later. I'm Deb from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.